It's my pleasure to welcome you all here today to the Outdoor Equity Grants Program. We're very excited about this program. There is so much that we have the potential of doing in this state with this particular program that I think you'll enjoy today's presentation. The thing that I will mention before we get started, a couple of things. One, as you come to this particular workshop, we ask that you come with an open mind. Often we think in terms of we know exactly what we want to do, we know exactly how we're going to do it. We want to encourage you to be open to this program so that you make certain that activities you're going to do fit the program and not try to make it the opposite way. So we encourage you to come in with an open mind. We're going to be introducing some new concepts as we move forward, and I'll talk about those momentarily. And also, this is just an incredible opportunity. Some of you who are on this particular, in the audience on this workshop have participated in helping to make this money come available. We have $19 million that we're going to be working with. And we think that it's a unique approach that the country can model over the coming years. So with that, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to ask that the team introduce themselves, and then we'll get started right after that. Victor?
Thanks, Cedric. Hi, everyone. I'm Victor Patino. I'm the program manager. Really excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for your interest. We look forward to your questions, and we hope you enjoy the webinar as much as we enjoy presenting. Thank you very much.
Good morning and welcome to our Outdoor Equity Grants Program webinar. My name is Richard Rendon and I am the supervisor of this program.
Good morning. My name is Kyle Boland. I'm one of the competitive review project officers and I'll be presenting today. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Schilp. I'm a project officer here with OGALS. Welcome to the webinar. I want to let you know that there's a lot of our team working on the back end here to make this webinar go smoothly, and that's Nikki Lambert, Adela Valdez, Esme Bermudez, Megan Harrison, Natalie B, and Sam Cadeau. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, and again, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Christine. So this is the team that will be presenting today. We hope that you'll find it to be fulfilling. We're going to ask that you ask any questions that you might have, and in the end, we'll be staying a little bit longer to answer any questions verbally. More to come on that. As I mentioned, we're very excited to hear from you today. We are looking forward to helping produce a clear and inspirational AB 209 outdoor equity program. Today, we'll call this program OEP for short. OEP is a unique program with $19 million in funding opportunity for programs and services. The first thing I need to make clear is construction projects are not eligible. I'll repeat that. Construction projects are not eligible. These funds are for program operation, which makes them so unique in the funding stream. Again, construction projects are not eligible, but these funds are for program operation. Grants will fund outdoor programs connecting Californians to the natural world, developing future environmental leaders, and creating lasting legacies in communities. 10 focus groups and 4 public hearings with over 200 participants, and 2 public comment periods help refine the final application guide. And we look forward to going through that guide with you today. Before we start, I want you to be aware of a few key approaches in the program. Programs that includes a series of activities are what we call multi-touch and span over a year, will be more competitive than proposing a one-day event, for example. You will learn about using a community home base approach for purposes of this program. The presenters will describe in more detail today, but here's a summary of how to plan for this unique funding opportunity. Each separate grant application will identify a community home base in an underserved community that needs access to outdoor programs. The community home base will become the central gathering place in that community for this program. The central gathering place for this program in the community could be a school, a community center, a community park, for example. This central gathering place will be called the community home base. Plan activities and trips from the community home base to nature areas. For example, activities in the community could include teaching school students about the community's environment, and trips from the community home base to natural areas could include a beach, a lake, desert, or forest or state or national park. As a recap, you will be establishing a home base in an underserved community, which can be a school or community center, for example. Then your agency or partners will organize educational activities in the community and organize trips from the community home base to natural areas. There's also a benefit that may interest you. And first, let's talk about money. You will learn today that while $700,000 is the proposed grant amount cap, it is per application. More than $700,000 may be awarded to one agency or organization. You can submit a separate application for each additional community that you and your partners can serve. For example, let's say you plan to serve 3 rural towns. 3 applications are submitted for the 3 towns at $300,000 per application. If all 3 grants are awarded, that would total $900,000. That may be possible. If one of the 3 grants is awarded, both the state and your organization will be clear on what community will be served through the awarded application. Please keep these points in mind as we go through today. The presenters today will get into more details as we go through the application guide to further explain what I've just shared with you. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and we look forward to your questions. And now I'll have Victor come up and we'll get started. Victor?
Thank you very much, Cedric. So I'll give you a few housekeeping points here. The first is that we traditionally do these workshops in person, so we do hope the technology works for you today as planned. So far, it's been going really well. This webinar will be recorded. We will have clips of each section of the webinar posted on the program website by mid-July, and you or your colleagues or your partners will be able to go to our website and watch the segments of the webinars, so that will be available for you. We also are going to create a frequently asked questions document based on your questions. So your questions today are going to help us produce a frequently asked questions document. So please don't be shy with your questions. A few of the webinar features to be aware of is there is a closed caption feature. If you look for the 3 dots on your toolbar, and Sam is currently circling where that's found, click on those 3 dots, and then you'll see something called Turn on Live Captions. So that is one feature available for you. The very important feature is the chat feature. And Sam is currently showing you what that icon looks like. If you click on the chat feature, that is where we will look for your questions. Now, you are going to see 2 things happening when you ask a question. One is that you may see a thumbs up, and that means that Natalie B will answer your question. Or you will see a heart, and that means I will answer your question. That's just our way of communicating between us, who will answer the questions. And given how large the audience is today, we do expect a lot of questions. So it ensures that we're all aware of the questions that are unanswered and who's answering what. So Again, thumbs up and a heart means that one of us will be working on answering your question. It may take us a few minutes. It may take us 5 to 10 minutes if there's a lot of questions. So thank you for your patience. Let's see here. If you are having any issues with sound or video, again, please email ogals@parks.ca.gov. Nikki will post that email address right now on your chat feature. If you cannot see the chat feature, one thing that has worked is to leave the meeting and come back in, and for some reason that seems to work for people. If you do lose internet connection, please be assured that all the information is on our website, and we will also have video clips again of the webinars on our website by mid-July. So that will be available for you. Now, throughout today's webinar, the main focus will be the application guide. Sam will have the application guide available on your screen, and the presenters will also announce what page number they are turning to. So you can follow based on both the screen as well as listening to what page number they are going to turn on. If you lose track of what page we are on within the application guide, just please simply post a question in the chat feature saying what page are we on. I'd also let you know that we are going to go through the entire application guide. If you have questions about eligible costs or the intent or the community home base, please understand that we are going to cover all of those topics today. So if you could please try as much as possible to present your questions based on the topic at hand, that would be very helpful. But again, Natalie and I would do our best to answer all of your questions throughout the webinar. Okay, so at that, we're ready to jump into the application guide. Again, we hope you enjoy the presentation today, and Richard will take you through the application guide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. So today, as Victor mentioned, we will definitely be going page by page through the Outdoor Equity Grants Program application guide. Key information will be highlighted on each page. And just please remember that if you do have a question about the topic at hand, please type into the chat feature and either Victor or Natalie will be more than happy to respond to it. So with that, Sam, can we please turn to the table of contents on page 3? Okay, so here is shows the structure and flow of this guide. Note that there are 4 color-coded sections, which include the program overview, application package, eligible costs, and appendices. These color-coded sections correlate to the top headers so applicants can orientate themselves to where they are in the guide at any time. In addition, I also want to draw your attention to the last sentence on this page in red font. Note that all words and terms in small caps are defined in the back of this guide. So with that, let's jump into page 4. So you'll notice here that the top of page 4 says that operation and transportation costs for programs are eligible. And then the second sentence starts us off with 3 terms that are in small capital letters, which means that they are defined in the back of the guide. So those are community home base, outdoor program, and natural area trips. So since these are in small caps and they are defined in the back of the guide, why don't we go ahead and go to the back of the guide and read these 3 definitions so we can get a better feel for the program. So Sam, can we start with community home base on page 50, please? So you'll note here that at the bottom of page 50, community home base is defined as a central gathering place for residents of an underserved community where the majority of targeted participants live. For example, a school, recreation center, community meeting space, or local park may serve as a central gathering place in the underserved community. So as we're going through the guide, you'll see more references to this on pages 5 to 6, as well as in project selection criteria 1. So keep that in mind as we're going forward. So the next term is outdoor program, which is on page 53. So here, outdoor program is defined as a series of activities, sub-programs proposed through one application that promote education, physical activities, leadership, and career pathways that strengthen participants' connection with the natural world. These include activities in the community and transporting residents to natural area trips from the community home base. These do not involve actual construction projects of buildings and land infrastructure. So be sure to keep that in mind, as Cedric mentioned several times, that these are for program costs only and not for any type of cap outlay. Self-discovery activities that empower participants to develop a sense of connection with nature, which may include unstructured time spent in the natural area trip. Activities that contribute to healthy lifestyles, sound nutritional habits, and improved outdoor educational and recreational experiences. Integrated instruction in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics that connects to the nature experiences stewardship. Activities that foster stewardship of the environment using curriculum pursuant to coordinate instructional resources and strategies for providing active pupil participation with on-site conservation efforts that promote service learning opportunities between schools and local communities, that assess the impact to participating pupils in a unified education strategy on pupil achievement and resource conservation. Curriculum that is assigned to that is aligned with the content standards of California Public Schools adopted by the State Board of Education, including but not limited to the Next Generation Science Standards or the California History Social Science Standards. Service learning and community outreach activities related to strengthening the connection to the natural world. And finally, therapeutic recreation using nature to help people heal. And finally, on page 52 is a definition of natural area trip. So here, natural area trip is defined as a location that is at least 5 miles from the community home base, that is challenging to access by residents, such as beaches, rivers, lakes, forests, mountains, deserts, tribal land, and state and national parks within California. So with that, Sam, can we go back to page 4? And so those three concepts are like the trinity of the program. So those are like the three overarching concepts that you really need to kind of tune into when you're going through the application guide, and as we're going to be going through it today. So keep those three tenets in the back of your mind. And so that should give you a good basic feel of the spirit of this program. So we're going to move on to eligible applicants. And the eligible applicants are public agencies, including cities, counties, local educational agencies, open space authorities, and districts, as well as nonprofits with 501c3 status. The grant performance period is currently July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2023. The amount available is $19 million. The maximum grant request per application is $700,000, while the minimum is $20,000. Keep in mind that there is no match requirement for this program, which is a great thing. Each application will propose a community home base, which we will go over on the next page. This will allow for clear reporting. The $700,000 cap, keep in mind, is per community home base application. You can submit a separate application for each additional community home base that you and your partners can serve. What does this mean? This means that more than $700,000 may be awarded to any one agency or organization. So you might want to start strategizing now. So if you have any questions, please be sure to put them in the chat feature, and Victor or Natalie will be more than happy to answer them. Before I go over and switch over to Christine, Victor, are there any questions in the chat that you'd like to go over with the group? Okay, Christine, it's up. It's on you.
Great, perfect.
Hi,
Thanks
Rich.
so much, Rich.
I'm sorry,
Um,
my computer had a little glitch here on the question. We do have one question that I do want to address for everyone here, and we're getting some questions about basically about improvements to physical property like building a community garden in a park, and or like installing connections for energy efficient vehicles, for example. And just want to be really clear that physical improvements to land or buildings are not eligible. This program is focusing on operations and services, meaning engaging the community in education, in learning about the community's environment, mentoring, leadership development, transporting community members from their community to natural areas. It's not about physical improvements to land or buildings. So please keep that in mind. So thank you, Jennifer, and others for the question. And the other question that we have is about, and I think we'll get more of this question, so I'll just address it right now. It's about if you are like a larger, if you have a larger jurisdiction, like you're a county agency, maybe a regional district, or a school district that covers, a large area, for example, can your entire jurisdiction be the community home base was the question. And the key of this program is to really focus on within your jurisdiction, are there any specific areas that are more underserved than others? And if you think about being the experts of your, of your county, of your city, of your jurisdiction, what area is affected by poverty, that may have a lack of services. And the spirit of this program is to really go into that particular area and find either a school or a community center or a local park, or it could be like a nonprofit community-based organization headquarters, where there are neighborhoods where people live that are affected by poverty surrounding that particular location, that particular school or community center or park, etc. And then you would establish that specific location as your community home base, and then activate that area through activities in the community, as well as transporting community members from the community home base to natural areas. So we'll get into that more in this throughout this application guide, but I just wanted to really emphasize that for you. Thank you very much.
all right, thanks, Vic. So we are now going to turn to that page 5. Perfect. And this is where we're going to be talking about the community home base. This page explains to the applicant that each application will, number one, identify a community home base, which will be the central gathering place in an underserved community that needs access to outdoor programs. For example, a community center or a school. Number two, the application will have to plan activities and trips from the community home base to natural areas outside the community. The activities in the community can be urban or rural. For example, activities in the community could include preparing students for a school trip to a state park or educational walks within the community. And natural area trips can include transporting participants from the community home base to natural areas that are challenging to access, such as regional, state, national parks, beaches, rivers or lakes, forests, mountains, or desert areas statewide. The second half of the page summarizes the above steps and notes that the grant priorities will begin on page 14. So if we can turn to the next page, page 6. Perfect. This page provides a visual of the basic approach for this program, which includes the information I just discussed from the previous page. And so on the visual there, you can see within the circle is your number 1 step, and that's to identify a community home base in an underserved community. Again, like a community center or a school. After you do that, then you will move down to number 2. And here you will conduct activities at or near the community home base. And again, these are activities such as preparing families for a camping trip, etc. And finally there for number 3 is to take participants from the community home base to natural area destinations. So that is a really good visual to see what we're looking for this program. So if I can have you turn to the next page, page 7. Perfect. So at the top of the page there, you'll see the application deadline. On the page here, it says the application deadline will be announced on our website at that web page. However, I want to say that we have announced it, and it is October 8th, 2021. Underneath there is the application process. The application process section outlines important steps to follow as you submit your application. I would specifically like to call your attention to items 3 through 5 on this page. Number 3, we are asking applicants to participate in the extensive technical assistance methods, such as application workshops, which you're doing right now, and contacting OGAL's OEP experts. Further on in the guide on page 42 is a complete list of technical assistance services available for applicants, which we will be going over later in this webinar. So number 4 is where we are asking applicants to please review the grant administrative guide, including all of the contract provisions to understand the requirements if the competitive application is selected for funding. And number 5 is to submit the online application by the application deadline, which again is October 8th, 2021. Application submittal instructions are to be found on page 9. So if we can turn to page 8 now, the next page. Perfect. So this page goes over the grant administrative process and performance period. Applicants who receive a grant must attend a mandatory grant administration workshop before receiving their contracts. These workshops will be offered in accessible areas throughout the state. We also will be offering successful applicants the outdoor recreation leadership training from the Department's Office of Community Involvement. This training is voluntary, but again, it is available to successful applicants. We will also be explaining this training more in detail towards the end of the webinar. As a reminder, grantees will need to send in their final payment request at least 3 months before the end of the grant performance period. This will accommodate for any changes or needs we will need to work out before the final liquidation date. And so with that, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat feature. Victor, do we have any questions before we move on to Kyle?
We have a lot of questions coming in. I'm just gonna keep on scanning them and answering them through the chat feature. And I may provide a few answers after Kyle's section. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, sure. Okay, Kyle, you're up.
Cool. If you could please turn to page 9 for the application package, Sam. Cool. So pages 9 to 36 contain information and guidance on completing the application. Each community home base will need a separate application. However, applicants can submit as many applications for separate community home bases as desired. Applicants should use the checklist on the following page to organize the application. This page provides additional information, including checklist items 1 through 9, which are required for all applicants. Checklist item 10 is required for nonprofits only. And we do ask that you send only the items requested in the checklist. Do not send supplementary materials such as PowerPoint presentations or letters of support. And also the application will be submitted online. So if you can, Sam, turn to page 10 for the actual application checklist. Thank you. So this page is home to the application checklist that includes the items needed to complete the application and lists which items require the authorized representative's signature. We will be going over each checklist item during the webinar today, so we ask that you please save questions for a specific item until we reach that section during our presentation. Sam, please turn to page 11 for the project application form instructions. So this page provides instructions on filling out the application form. And Sam, if you could turn to page 12, the next page, which is the project application form itself. Perfect. On this page, the application form is the application form, which provides the name and location of the community home base and must be signed by the authorized representative. I'll give you a moment to review the form, and while you do, you can also put any questions in the chat feature. Victor, are there any questions in the chat you'd like to bring to the group's attention?
So we did have, there is an interesting question about eligible applicants going back to, and I think it's a helpful question, going back to the eligible applicants section, which is found on page 4. And I just want to emphasize that it's a broad range of eligible applicants. Public agencies can be any local, state, or federal agency. In this question, the question was, are universities eligible? The answer is, if it's a state university, such as CSU, the state universities are eligible applicants. If it's a private university, then there will need to be a 501c3 nonprofit, because nonprofits are eligible sector of the university. So sometimes private universities have a 501c3 nonprofit. That would be an eligible applicant. However, if you are not an eligible applicant, you're not within the broad group on page 4, you can always partner with an eligible applicant, and we'll get into partnerships soon, but partnerships do play a role and do receive points for this program. The second really important question, and this is from Simon, is about the grant performance period. And I want to take some extra time talking about this here because it's really important for your planning. The first part of Simon's question was that Simon noticed that I'm going back also on page 4, right below the eligible applicants, middle of page 4, where it says July 1st, 2020 to June 30, 2023 is the current period for eligible costs. Okay. Now you'll notice right below it says visit the website for updates. We have that in there because it does appear there will be updates to the grants performance period. For the current $19 million, the period did start July 1st of 2020. So if you are awarded a grant through that 19 million, then what we call pre-award planning costs for up to 5% of the grant amount can be reimbursed. Okay, but that's only the 5% pre-award planning costs. The rest of your eligible costs have to wait until you receive an award and you're told to proceed. At that point, you can start your program and start the eligible cost reimbursement from the date of the award. Okay, so that is called post-award. And we'll get into those definitions a bit more later today when we get into eligible costs. The other thing I do want to mention is that the state budget should come out pretty soon, and there may be a extended performance period for the $19 million. It could be an additional 3 years, for example. Currently, if that extension does not occur in the state budget, currently, if you're awarded a grant through the 19 million, the grant awards would take place around spring of 2022. And you would have 1 year to conduct your program to complete it by final payments by June 30 of 2023. So that's 1 year. However, we will provide updates. It's possible that the grant funds for the 19 million may be extended for multiple years. So keep that in mind. Yesterday, someone had a great question. The advice I would give you is for the next week or so, you may want to just focus on, at a minimum, what you can do with a 1 year grant, and then be prepared to expand your vision to what you can do with a multiple year grant, such as a 3-year grants performance period. So keep that in mind. Again, we'll have updates. We have all of your email addresses. We will send you emails once the budget is finalized and we have more information. And there also could be additional funds added to the program. So we'll let you know that happens as well. So very exciting times for this program. Okay, thanks, Kyle.
Okay, now we're going to go to page 13, which is the beginning of the grant selection criteria, or what I always like to call it is the meat and potatoes of the application guide here. So the following pages will be dedicated to the the criteria. So as you see on this page, which is checklist item number 2, that this criteria will be used to rank all statewide applications. There are 6 criteria for the Outdoor Equity Grants Program that add up to a maximum of 100 points. So here you'll notice in the middle of the page in the bullets that all applicants and applications begin with 0 points. Points are never lost. Points are gained. So depending on your responses to the criteria, you will gain points. In order to guide applicants, each criterion has a scoring chart, or rubric as we like to call them. And also what's unique to our application guides throughout our office is that technical assistance is also available for each criterion in the back of this guide. So as we're going through the 6 criterion today, we will be bouncing from the actual criterion and criteria to the technical assistance located towards the back of the guide. So with that, Sam, let's turn to page 14 for criterion number 1, which focuses on the community home base. So you'll notice that this page is broken into 2 parts. Part A, scoring points will be based off the numbers provided by the community fact finder in the categories of income, poverty, free or reduced price meals, and English learner levels around the community home base. Part B will ask applicants to describe challenges affecting their residents. It also asks specifically why the community home base was selected, and what is the need for its residents to have access to an outdoor program. Here is a chance to include information that data from the rest of the criteria does not provide. As you'll notice, the rubrics are based on a statewide scale, which compares all applications to determine point rankings. So you'll notice for per capita income, a maximum of 6 points will be given to the lowest per capita income. So that's the lowest 10% on the ranked list. For people in poverty, maximum of 5 points will be given to the highest 10% of people in poverty compared to other statewide applications. Moving, can we go to the next page, Sam, please? Thank you, sir. So for free or reduced price meals, maximum of 5 points will be given to the highest enrollment percentage of between 100 to 90% for school meal enrollment percentages. And then for English learners, 4 points will be given to the highest 10% on the ranked list of English learners. For Part B, a maximum of 10 points will be given to a community home base that has significant challenges compared to all statewide applications. The community home base is a high priority area for access to an outdoor program. So now I would like to draw your attention to the community fact finder version created for this program. And at this point, I will turn it over to Kyle, and he will give you a 5-minute live demonstration of this tool before we continue on with Criteria 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. So what you will do is in the web browser, you'll go to parksforcalifornia.org/outdoor equity. And you'll land on a page like this. You'll see up here on the upper left, it says Outdoor Equity Program Tools. So you'll know that's for this specific program. So if you scroll down here, Sam, a little bit, people will start to see that there is a map down here. There's also a address bar over on the left where you can enter an address. And Sam, you could enter, Sacramento or any address really. So you'll enter the address here and then you could hit go. This is going to bring you into a map. So there are a few overlays which are in the bottom right of the map. And so I'll kind of tell you what each one is. So you can see the one here says parks and open space. So if you click that one, it's going to show you all the parks that are on the map within all of California. The next one, if you were to turn the parks and open space off or leave it on, the disadvantaged communities is the next one. So if you click on that one, it's going to show you disadvantaged communities and also the severely disadvantaged communities within that community. And then the next overlay you can click is schools. So I turn off the disadvantaged communities usually. And now you can see the schools are going to be those orange or yellow blocks. And so those are going to be the public elementary through high schools in the community. So we'll show you how to create a final report soon. The final report is what is used for Criterion 1. But if you are unfamiliar with the names of the schools or the parks in the communities, we're going to kind of show you a way to identify them on the Community Fact Finder map. So if you look at the cursor on the map, if you put the cursor on the map the way it is right now, Sam. So if you guys see that cursor on the map, it is a cross. And so when it's a cross, you can click anywhere on the map. And so if you click there, if you click right there, Sam, on the map. So there's two ways. Yeah, if you click with it as a cross, it'll move the pen for you, or you can click on the. There you go. It'll move wherever you click. It'll move the pen. There's another way as well. if you like to find out like the name of the school or the park on the map, you can click the red pen in the upper left so now this pen turns from blue to white, and then you put the cursor back over a map, and now it turns to a hand. So you can grab the screen, you can move the screen, but you can also click on any of the school sites or any of the parks. And if you click on that, it's going to tell you the name of the school, and it's also going to tell you the name of a park in that community. So let's say that this school right here is the community home base. You can move the pen within the school boundary to find the best numbers. And you're looking for the lowest per capita income and the highest number of people below poverty, for example. And so you can move that pen around within that boundary of that school. Now, there's the data that we're trying to find, which is for Criteria 1, which is over here on the left in the table. And we're looking at the per capita income, which is found on page 14 of the application guide. People in poverty, which is also found on page 14 of the application guide. The free or reduced priced meals, which is found on page 15 of the application guide. And English learners, which is also on page 15 of the application guide. So let's just say this is the final pinpoint of the community home base you want to use. What we'll do is we're going to run a report. So if we kind of go up to the top here, there's a Get Report button. And so you click on that Get Report button. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a PDF for you. And we'll see if that should come up here. And this is the report. So this report has those numbers. It's got the highlighted number of people in poverty, per capita, free and reduced price meals, and English learners. And this is what will be included in the application. And these are the numbers that will be used for Criteria 1. And that's how you use the Community Fact Finder. And we can turn it back over to Rich now.
Thank you, Kyle. So just a couple quick things about that. Can we go back to that map for a second, Sam? Thank you. So you'll notice that this map is not showing all of the overlays on it. So don't worry about that. We're not looking for that. What's the most important part are the statistics to the left, and those, regardless of whatever overlays are on the map, the data will pick up everything that we need on the left-hand side. So that's the area where we're most concerned. So don't worry that the advantage and the disadvantage and severely disadvantaged overlay is not showing up on the map. So I just want to point that out because I know we got some questions yesterday about the overlay. So don't even worry about that. As long as the data is correct, we're good to go. So also remember that that as applicants, you will need a separate community fact finder report for each proposed community home base. So now let's go ahead and turn to the technical assistance portion on page 43. Thank you, Sam. The goal of the Outdoor Equity Grants Program is to provide access to residents who otherwise would be financially, imaginatively, or physically unable to benefit from outdoor programming. The community home base should be strategically located within walking distance of most residents. So if you have any questions regarding Criteria 1, go ahead and put those in the chat feature, and Victor and Natalie will be happy to answer those. In the meanwhile, can we please turn to page 16, Sam, so we can start Criterion Number 2, which is community planning. So here, applicants describe how the community's feedback was obtained through outreach and to provide the ideas that the community had for outdoor programs, including activities at or near the community home base and at or near the natural area trip or trips that will be implemented. This planning must occur between AB 209 appropriation, which was July 1st of 2020, to the application deadline, which is October 8th of 2021. So here, we need you to answer A, B, and C in this criterion to demonstrate community engagement in the outdoor program design. So in part A, applicants will discuss the methods of outreach, such as in-person meetings, online platform, teleconferences, etc., the location addresses, and the start and end time of the applicant's community engagements. Also discuss why this was an effective location for community engagement, as well as a number of residents in the general description. In part B, discuss the activities near the community home base and the ideas that will be implemented from the residents. Here, please do not include any ideas that will not be implemented. And then part C, you will discuss the activities near the natural area trips instead of the community home base. So keep that in mind. So on page 19 are the scoring rubrics. So you'll notice here that 5 points will be given to applicants with a response that had over 20 multi-generational residents, including parents, guardians, older adults, and at least 10 youth that were engaged through a combination of 2 or more meetings to give feedback about planning the outdoor program. And for B and C, we're looking at, you'll get 5 points if there were accepted ideas for activities in the community, and 5 points if there were accepted ideas used in the natural area trips. So with that, can we go to page 44, Sam, for the technical assistance for criteria 2, please? This page includes ideas for outreach and how to structure meetings to capture residents' ideas. As an alternative to in-person meetings, we will post a document soon that provides tips for conducting webinars or phone conferences with community members. Please put any questions about criteria 2 in the chat feature. And now, before I turn it over to Christine, I would like to bring in Cedric, who will speak more about the community-based planning and following CDC guidelines at the time when engagement occurs. Cedric?
Thank you, Richard. So one of the things that people, because of the COVID crisis that we have been in, they come and they ask, well, how can we have community meetings during this particular time? We just finished application, the deadline for the statewide park program, and one of the requirements was to have a robust community-led planning process. And we saw some extraordinarily creative ways in which that could happen while observing, of course, the social distancing and health orders that were in place during that time. The state has opened up quite a bit since that time. But for those who have applied for us with any grant, and for those of you who are new to our programming, a community engaged process is fundamental. We believe you have to talk to the people who you're going to be serving to ensure that the programs and the activities that will be taking place in their community is something that they want and something that they can continue to thrive from. So what we will be doing is certainly giving you tools on our website, which will come in a few days, to allow you to have a better understanding of how you might be able to do that. We certainly are going to be available to answer any questions that you might have regarding this, but we want you to make certain that you are following the health orders that are in your particular area, because they do differ from county to county. And we want to make certain, too, that you understand that we are not going to penalize you if you have virtual experiences in getting this kind of information from people. If there is an inability to have an in-person experience. We did see some creative things come forward where social distancing was observed, where groupings could be made for families that are living together or in the same household, that they didn't have to have contact with those who were not in their household. We saw many different approaches, and we certainly would be glad to share with you whatever those might be. But fundamentally, what we're suggesting and what we're asking for is that you make contact with the people you want to serve. And for some, that may be moving outside of a comfort zone. It's not a question of just going into a community and saying, here's what we're going to provide for you. Remember, this program is about what nature can provide for folks. And not only is there the health benefits that come from engaging people in nature and the quality of life improvements that do occur, but there's also a need for us to ensure that for the long-term stability and empowerment of the people who live in those communities that we're going to serve, that they have a say in what it is that they're looking for and wanting, that they can be inspired in the inspiring us in delivery of services for the long term. So if there are any questions that you have regarding this particular subject I'm talking about, please go ahead and put it into the chat, and we will answer those questions as we move forward. On that note, I'm going to invite Richard back, and then he'll bring Christina.
And Richard, when you're done with, thank you, Cedric. Richard, when you're done with criteria number 2, I think it'd be a great time for a 5-minute break.
And it just so happens, Victor, that I am done with criteria 2. So I don't know if you want to if you have any questions to address before we go to break, or if you want to address those after break.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Richard. Let's go back to criteria number 1, and we have some really good questions about criteria number 1. The first question is the there was a question about how far is the radius from the community home base to serve populations? So very interesting question. The answer is the way this program's set up, it is to the advantage of the applicant to identify a part of the county or the city or the town that is low income, that has a low per capita income, a higher number of people below poverty, and then establish a community home base in that part of the town or city. Then secondly, to serve the population that lives surrounding that community home base, so within the surrounding neighborhood areas. So that will get you off to a very good start in criteria number 1. However, we also recognize that participants can come from outside of the surrounding neighborhoods to access the community home base, and that's also welcome. There's no like physical barrier that would prohibit other people from accessing your community home base and being part of the activities and the programs. But again, to get you off to a very good start, we do encourage you to scan your jurisdiction and find a community home base that is in a area that's affected by poverty, that's underserved, and then start planning to serve the population that lives close to that home base, while you can also welcome other folks that live further away to go to the home base too. So that's all fine. The second question is, how is underserved defined? And that's a very good, fundamental question. And I'd please turn your attention to page 14, criteria number 1B. And this is very important. Number 1B on page 14 is your chance as the applicant to describe the need for the program based on the challenges that the community faces that is not covered by the community fact finder. And I'll give you a great example of something that came up yesterday. Yesterday, there was an example of it was a remote part of the state, and you had a mix of farm working. There was farm working neighborhoods that were very low income, but also wealthy farmers that lived in the same community. And so, so the potential applicant said that, you know, if you look at the income of the farm workers, the farm laborers is very low, but then the wealthy farm workers that live in the same area bring that income much higher. And so criteria number 1B is designed to tell that story. Okay. And again, technical assistance for criteria number 1B is on page 43, and challenges are defined in the back guide of the back section of the guide. So that was a really good question. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Rich. We can take a 5-minute break now.
Okay. Welcome back from our 5-minute break. We are now going to turn to page 18. Perfect. And so I hope in your break you got to get some coffee and a stretch and are a little bit more energized, because this is a pretty lengthy criterion and it's a lot of information. So we will get started here. So again, this is criterion number 3. This is the outdoor program goals. You'll notice here that it says activities in the community. There are going to be 2 charts that we're going to be asking applicants to fill out. And so there's one on this page, which pertains to activities in the community. And then there's one on the following page, which I will discuss a little bit later, which is activities in the natural areas. So before I get into that, if we can turn to the definition of activity in the community, which is found on page 50. Perfect. And so there's the definition at the top. Activity in the community is outdoor or indoor education components designed to teach participants about the community's environment and the community's link to clean air, water, and land that achieves one or more of the following goals. And so you can see those 5 goals there. It's environmental justice, analysis, and reporting that may involve youth leadership development in the community, solution-based learning about the community's connection to climate change and other environmental issues, such as stormwater runoff, air quality, brownfields, etc. Number 3, discovering nature in action in the community through educational walks, looking for flora and fauna, and visits to local resources such as zoos, creeks, and science nature centers, etc. Number 4, curriculum-based activities at the community home base. And number 5, preparing participants for natural area trips. So if I could have you turn back to page 18. Perfect. And so you can see under that number 1, the applicants are asked to provide a plan for achieving up to 5 of those goals listed in the definition that I just read. So please group the activities in the community into no more than 5 goals. And so now we can go over letters A through L on this page. And you can see there that in the chart is A through E. And so A, we are asking for the activity goal title. B, locations where the activity will take place and addresses if available. C, the number of intended participants per activity day. D, the number of planned activity days. And E, the number of intended participants. And that's where you're going to multiply C and D together. So after answering those questions, you're going to move down to letters F through L. F, we're asking applicants to provide a general description of intended participants. Out of all of those, we want to know how many will be youth participants. G, we're asking to cite the educational goal that will be met per the definition of education, which could be found on page 51. We want you to briefly just summarize the qualifications of the group or individual who will provide the experience and what teaching methods will be used. H, how will the activity increase community capacity to foster a long-term environmental justice legacy, such as engaging in planning and improving the community's environment? I, we're going to ask you to list the supplies, equipment, and activity fees and their associated cost estimates. We'll be going over cost estimates later on in this webinar. J, briefly describe estimated transportation costs if applicable. K, briefly describe estimated costs for labor. And L is the total estimated cost, and that's where you're going to add I, J, and K together to achieve the activity goal. And again, this particular criterion is going to tie in really closely to the grant scope cost estimate form, which I will be going over later in this webinar as well. So with that, if I could have you turn to the next page, which is page 19. And so here you'll see a similar chart as the one that we just went over. And so this chart is where we're going to be asking applicants about the natural area trips. So again, we have that A through E at the top of the chart where we ask the trip title, the destination location, for C, the number of intended participants for this trip. Again, an average estimate per trip is acceptable. D, for reoccurring natural area trips to the same location, list the number of repeat trips. And then E, again, is the total number of intended participants, where we're asking you to multiply that C times D. Moving down to letter F, again, we want to know the general description of intended participants. For G, will it be a one-day trip or overnight multiple days? And if it's multiple days, how many are there? For H, again, we want you to cite the educational goal. I, we want participants to have time for self-discovery, to explore or play and form a personal connection with nature. So we want applicants to describe how they will have participants do that. Again, J through L are all of the costs associated with the natural area trip, including those supplies, transportation costs, and labor costs. And finally, M, again, is to total the estimated costs to achieve that nature area trip total cost. And again, you'll be able to use this for the grant scope cost estimate form, which I will be going over later in the webinar. Okay, so with that, if we can turn to the next page, page 20. Perfect. And so here is the actual scoring rubric for criterion number 3. You'll notice there, I'm going to reference the top box for that points, 16 to 20 points. To receive a maximum of 20 points, the outdoor program will include all of those following little boxes there. So they will have to include both activities in the community and natural areas, activities for both education and self-discovery nature exploration, and that the primary intended participants of the overall program are youth. However, at a minimum, at least one activity in the community and at least one natural area trip will involve other age groups, such as families, older adults, and other residents. This means your program will emphasize serving youth, but at least one activity in the community and one trip should include other age groups. If you are needing to expand on the age groups that you normally serve, you may want to consider partnering with another organization. Not only will this help you achieve the 20-point maximum there for this criteria, but the partnership may also count towards points for criteria 5, which focuses on partnerships and capacity building. And so if you move on down the scoring rubric there, at the very bottom, you'll see that applications that do not include in any outdoor program activities designed to create a connection to the natural world will not be eligible. So, and with that, we also have technical assistance available for this criterion. It's available on pages 45 through 46. So if we can turn to page 45. Perfect. So here you will find tips for this criterion, as well as many examples for types of activities for both activities at the community home base or natural area trips. So at the top of this page, you can see activities that will strengthen the participants' connection to the natural world. And you could read there, 1 through 6, there's, education and self-discovery activities with structured and unstructured time, allows participants to develop personal connections to nature. Partnerships may help to provide additional experience to serve other age groups or abilities. And the majority of activities should take place outdoors. However, indoor education classes or some indoor activities due to weather constraints are acceptable. And so you can read through those 6 there. Moving down the page are some other examples that may occur during activities in the community or during natural area trips. Those are, some education topics could include natural resources and interpretation, guided nature walks, cultural heritage and historic exploration, climate change, potential solutions, camping skills, etc. So those are just some examples. Those aren't, limited examples. Those are just some that we provided. So if you have any other activities or ideas, those could be welcome as well. So if you have any questions about criteria 3, I know that was a lot of information. So please put them in the chat feature. I'm going to move on now to criteria number 4. And that is on back to page 21. All right, perfect. So criteria 4 focuses on service learning, career pathway, and leadership opportunities. Here, applicants will describe how residents, including youth, will participate in meaningful service learning, career pathway, and leadership opportunities during the grant performance period by answering those questions A through C in the chart at the top of the page. Notice in the description in that first paragraph that it focuses on opportunities that can be used for job resumes or college admissions, such as a certification or an internship. Applicants are asked to describe the opportunity in that letter A that can be used for future employment resumes or college admissions. In letter B is where we ask the number of residents, and then see if there are any costs for internships if applicable. Towards the bottom of the page there is the scoring rubric, and it gives the maximum of 15 points for an outdoor program that will involve at least 15 residents who will receive service learning, career pathway education, and leadership opportunities. Again, at the very bottom of the rubric, 0 points will be gained if the outdoor program does not involve any of these opportunities. We offer technical assistance, which is available on page 47. So if we can turn there really quick. Perfect. So this provides many examples of meaningful opportunities that we're talking about for criteria number 4. You can see the meaningful examples starting in the middle of the page there. So examples are, youth leadership and community organizing and outreach to residents during the community-based planning, language translators, internships and training positions, and developing communication related to water, parks, climate, and coastal protection, etc. So you can see those lists of opportunities on this page. So if you have any questions about criteria 4, please put them in that chat feature. All right, so I know that was a lot of information for those 2 criterions. So I'm going to check in with Vic and see if he has any questions he would like to talk about.
I think the group slowed down. You sure did a good job keeping us on our toes for the so far. But Christine, believe it or not a whole lot of questions came in during criteria number 3. But I will share a question that came up yesterday, which I thought was really helpful. That does relate to criteria number 3. And the question was about serving different populations. Like, what is the population age group focus of this program? And so, as Christine mentioned, as you see in the scoring boxes, we call them scoring rubrics. Your goal is to score as many points as possible. So, you want to pay close attention to the scoring rubrics and figure out what adjustments can you make to your vision to plan a program that can score as many points as possible. So if you look at the 20-point section on page 20, in the third, the sentence says, the primary intended participants of the overall outdoor program are youth. Okay, and that's defined as K through 12. But we also got questions about what about like first generation university students, youth that are 19 to 23, for example, and that's also very fine and eligible. But here's the key that Christine mentioned. I want to just bring extra attention to it because it's a question that comes up. And the question is can you have multi-generational activities where it's all age groups of the community, like families? You can have a activity in the community involving families, as well as trips to natural areas involving families, and that's definitely eligible. Now, let's say you focus on serving a specific age group. Let's say you're a school district and you are targeting third and fourth graders. The second part of that paragraph I just read does say, however, at a minimum, at least one activity in the community and at least one natural area trip will involve other age groups, such as families, older adults, or other residents. So if you are planning to serve youth, K through 12 age group, for example, you want to make a slight adjustment and have at least one activity in the community and at least one natural area trip to serve other age groups like families, older adults, or other residents. Now, if you are unsure about doing that, we do recommend partnerships. So you may be able to form a partnership with a group that specializes in serving older adults or, seniors or families. Okay, so find a community-based organization or some other partner that can assist you with serving a different age group. If you are focused on serving seniors and you want to take seniors to natural areas, for example, that's also great and eligible under this program. If you're not familiar with serving youth or uncomfortable with that, again, we do recommend a partnership with a district or another type of agency or organization that has that capacity and experience. So keep that in mind. When we go through this criteria, if there's something in here that you feel that your organization may not have the capacity or the experience or the scope on serving, that's when you want to think about a partnership. And we will get into partnerships coming up in a few minutes, where you can actually score points for doing that. So that's really a key point. Okay. Now, the other thing that we received a question on yesterday was in also the 20-point section on page 20, when it talks about a high number of activity days, range of proposed activities is outstanding, and the plan maximizes the number of participants compared with similar grant requests statewide. What does that mean? Okay, first of all, it means that the competition will determine how high of a range of activity days and outstanding the proposed activities are. And that will be determined by the competition. And we also want to really make you aware that we do understand that a $700,000 grant obviously can accomplish much more than a, let's say, a $50,000 or $100,000 grant request. So that will be taken into consideration as well. We do understand that more funding can typically generally achieve more than smaller grant requests. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Christine.
All right. Well, Sam, can I get you to turn the page to 22 for grant selection? Perfect. This is criterion number 5. It focuses on partnerships and capacity building. So this criterion asks applicants to describe partnership assistance that will be provided starting with the appropriation date of AB 209, which is July 1, 2020, through the grant performance period. Examples of partners include, but are not limited to, health organizations, schools, nonprofits, and community clubs. Partners can assist in many ways, including providing transportation services, donating food and supplies, or committing funds. This criterion has 2 parts, A and B, as shown in the 2-column chart above the scoring rubric. Part A requests the name and general purpose of the partner, and Part B requests information about the partner's role in the project. The scoring rubric at the bottom of this page shows that a maximum of 10 points will be given to applicants with 2 or more partnerships. Please turn to page 48, Sam, so we can review the technical assistance for this criterion. Thank you. A few things I would like to highlight are that we recognize that some community groups do not have a formal 501c3 status. We added example 3 in here. The community groups can partner with an eligible applicant. The eligible applicant can be the fiscal sponsor, administer the grant if awarded, while the community groups can perform services on behalf of the fiscal sponsor. This is an example of a partnership that can earn a point. There is no advantage for greater amounts of committed funds. Cash contributions are not required. We encourage forming a health organization partnership, but it is not required to obtain maximum points for this criterion. We suggest including a health organization as a project partner because AB 209 includes the following priority: contribute to healthy lifestyles, sound nutritional habits, and improved outdoor education and recreation experiences. The definition of health organizations can be found on this page, as well as on page 51 of the application guide. Go ahead and put any questions into the chat feature. And Sam, if you could please turn to page 23 for criterion number 6, mentoring youth after the grant performance period. So sustaining the outdoor program beyond the grant performance period is not required. This is about engaging youth after the outdoor program grant has ended. Applicants can describe a plan to recruit and empower youth identified through the outdoor program who have the potential to become future environmental leaders in California by responding to Part A. To describe their plan, applicants will be asked the following questions. How many youths will be selected by the applicant recruited through the outdoor program, and how will they identify those who have the potential to become future environmental leaders in California? And what types of activities will the mentoring involve? Examples could include capacity building, or educational mentoring towards careers in natural resource professions, civic engagement, including cultivating active involvement in the decision-making process to have a healthy environment, or applicants can describe why it is not possible to mentor youth leaders after the grant performance period by responding to Part B. The scoring rubric, as shown on the bottom of the page, will give a maximum of 10 points for a plan to mentor youth after the grant performance period, or an explanation why this concept can be achieved. There is technical assistance on page 49 for this criterion. If we can turn to that page, Sam. Okay, perfect. So another example of continued youth engagement and empowerment shown here is an annual community needs assessment about environmental justice that could be conducted and reported by youth. It should be noted that grant-funded equipment and supplies may continue to be used after the grant performance period. I'd like to point out the box on this page regarding the grant selection criteria requirements. We are currently looking at a user-friendly technical assistance tool that will assist grantees with their status reports, which will be sent to the grantees every 6 months until final grant payment. The status reports will serve as a reminder of what the applicant committed to during the competitive process. This concludes the grant selection portion of the Outdoor Equity Grants Program Application Guide. Please put any questions into the chat feature. Before we move on, Victor, if there's any questions you'd like to bring to the group's attention.
Yeah, there's one question, and the question is, am I correct that there are no assessment requirements? And I was first of all going to ask for clarity about what that means, but let me just give a really, basic answer, in that there are no additional requirements besides what we are presenting today that are found in the application guide. So all the application requirements are listed on one page, and that is your application checklist. And there are no other requirements besides the requirements that are listed on page 10 of the application checklist. So use page 10 to organize your application and make sure you're on track. There are no other hidden or additional requirements. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Okay, moving right along here. Sam, can we please go to page 24 for the Community Fact Finder Report and Certification Form. This page summarizes the steps we discussed a little earlier regarding the Community Fact Finder. As was mentioned prior, be sure that you include one final Fact Finder report with your application for your community home base. Sam, can we go to page 25, please? So here is the Community Fact Finder certification form. This is signed by the authorized representative, and it basically certifies that you placed your PIN on or inside the boundary of your community home base for your Community Fact Finder report. That's pretty simple. Can we go to page 26, Sam, for the authorizing resolution? So the authorizing resolution shows that your governing body approves the application to be submitted. On page 26, this includes instructions on the authorizing resolutions. Keep in mind that if your governing body requires any language to be added or deleted from the authorizing resolution on page 27, which has template language, be sure that you notify your project officer as soon as possible so we can kind of run it through the channel, because sometimes we may need to run it up to our legal department to ensure that it still meets our legal requirements for the program. So just keep that in mind. And then, so finally, so this is the template language for the resolution. And if the resolution is not ready by the October 8th deadline, just please provide a placeholder and let us know when you expect to have the resolution approved by your governing body and submitted to us. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat feature. And Victor, do we have any other questions before I move this over to Christine?
Yeah, we do have a good question from Win Wolves Preserve asking for some examples. And I'm going to kind of broaden that question to say, do you have examples for criteria 1 through 6 for all the criteria? As Richard mentioned, the grant selection criteria 1 through 6 is really the heart of your application. Your response must be complete when the application is submitted, but anything else that we're about to cover moving forward, if you're not ready at the time of application, for example, this authorizing resolution, if your governing body like your city council, your board of directors cannot approve the resolution by the application deadline, you can provide a placeholder in your application telling us when that document will be submitted. So the grant selection criteria that we just covered, that must be complete at the time of application. All other documents can be submitted later if you give us a placeholder and we can work with you. Okay. Now, going back to Win Wolf's question about examples for mentoring youth, and I'll just expand it for examples for all of the criteria 1 through 6. There is a very detailed and I believe hopefully very helpful technical assistance section, which starts on page 43 and then goes all the way through page 49. So examples of mentoring youth would be civic engagement, giving youth leadership roles, career pathway development for youth. One example we provide on page 49 is an annual community needs assessment about environmental justice that can be conducted and reported by youth. And also, if you go back to page 47. And page 47, items 1 through 8 provide examples of service learning, career pathway, or leadership opportunities that can be conducted through the program and supported by the grant. So these types of activities, again, can introduce participants to the fields of therapeutic recreation, natural science, leadership development, and we give plenty of examples there. So, just as you start working on conceptualizing your program, please, not only use criteria 1 through 6 and the scoring rubrics, but also pay attention to their related technical assistance section for additional examples. And I just want to emphasize this in case I forget to mention it later. When you have questions, our team will be available to help you throughout the application process. So if you're not sure about a certain idea or you want some clarification, today is the start of technical assistance for you. It's not the end of it. We'll be here to help you throughout the application process. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, Vic. All right. So now we're going to go to the grant scope and cost estimate part of the webinar. Just a reminder that when I spoke about criteria 3 earlier in the webinar, that criteria really goes well with completing the grant scope cost estimate form. So before we go into actually describing how to fill out the grant scope cost estimate form, I would first like to draw your attention to the program's list of eligible and ineligible costs. So those are located on pages 37 through 41. So if we could start on page 37. Perfect. All right, so these pages provide rules and examples of eligible and ineligible costs for the program. So you'll notice here on page 37 that it's broken out into 2 categories. The first category is at the top there. It's the pre-award planning costs. These are associated with planning the outdoor program during the grant performance period. These costs include up to 5% of the grant amount dating back to that date of appropriation. This may include note takers, facilitators, multilingual translation, transportation, equipment, supplies, etc. for the meetings and other outdoor planning purposes. Please also see the definition of pre-award planning costs at the back of the guide. In addition, you can look back to Criterion Number 2 and Criterion Number 2's Technical Assistance page for more information about planning the proposed outdoor program. Continuing down this page, you'll see the second category there is the post-award activity costs. We will go through those categories, that A through D there, on the next page. But to reiterate that these are not planning costs, the post-award activity costs are direct costs to conduct the activities in the community and natural area trips. These post-award activity costs become eligible on the start date provided by OGALS. You can also turn to the back of the guide to see the definition of post-award activity costs. So now we will go into detail about a few of the post-award activity costs. And so those start on the next page. And so that's page 38. Perfect. So at the top there, you'll see we'll start with A, and these are eligible costs related to supplies, equipment, and activity fees / admissions. So I want to specifically draw your attention to that first bullet point down, which is activity fees. And these are fees for location entrances, for places such as museums, parks, campground reservations, zoos, etc. And also for specific experiences such as horseback riding, paddling, rafting, rock climbing, renting or leasing vehicles or equipment, etc. 2 bullet points down, I'll draw your attention to where it says the most economical use of state funds. This is for supplies and equipment that will cost over $500 per single unit item and which can be purchased, leased, or rented. The most economical use of state funds must be applied. This means that the grantee will use the most affordable option to complete the outdoor program during the grant performance period by either renting, leasing, or purchasing the supplies and equipment. So for example, you would think to yourself, would it be cheaper to rent tents for a weekly camping trip, or would the most cost-effective way to be if you were to purchase tents and use them for the length of the program? So those are kind of ideas that we want you to think about when we're talking about that most economical use of state funds. So moving on down to letter B, some eligible costs for the travel costs. I would like to call your attention to that overnight accommodation bullet point. So campsite rentals, hotels, etc. Following the most economical use of the state funds, including travel to and from the destination of the natural area trip. It's important to note that the cost cannot exceed that state per diem set in each county where the overnight accommodation will take place. And so what we mean by that is we have a link underneath there that will take you to the state page that will show per county what the state rates are for that specific county for overnight accommodations. So we will need you to go to that link. Also, a couple bullet points down is the meal per diem for the natural area trips only. So this includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner meals during the path of travel, and overnight stays are eligible for up to the state's per diem rates or actual costs, whichever is less. Again, please keep all receipts for audit purpose. So again, there's a link to the state web page that will show you those meal per diem costs on our state website there. Okay, so moving on to the next page, page 39. Perfect. And so at the top there, you can see the top 3 bullet points are regarding vehicle use. So we get a lot of questions about this. So the top bullet point there, vehicle use for transportation of participants may involve taking participants to and from the community home base to natural area trips, and also taking participants to and from the community home base and their schools and neighborhoods for activities in the community related to the grant selection criteria. The second bullet point, vehicles chartered or rented by the grantee. Chartered transportation paying for a charter company's standard rate is an eligible cost, as rental of vehicles at market value, including low greenhouse gas emission vehicles, are an eligible cost. The third bullet there, vehicles owned and leased by grantee. Mileage incurred on a grantee's own vehicle can be charged at the state rate. That is in effect at the time of the trip. Maintenance and repair costs necessary to safely operate the vehicle are built into the state's rate of the allowable charge per mile. A mileage log must record the trips charged to the grant. For audit purposes, the mileage log must describe the miles driven, the outdoor program purpose related to the grant scope, and must be signed by the operator and supervisor. Something that's really important to note also regarding vehicles is that vehicles cannot be purchased, because that would be part of capital outlay, and capital outlay costs are not eligible for this program. So moving on to letter C there, you'll see we have labor costs listed. So a few of those, you can read through that list, but a couple of them, we want you to see the account for employee services, to see accounting rules for the employee services explained in the grant administrative guide. Internships consistent with that grant selection number 4. And let's see what else. Reporting, any reporting costs, including data collection, photography, and videography, which can include interviews and participants. And also the eligible miscellaneous costs, including economical use of state funds, cost comparison for equipment, supplies, and natural area trips related expenses, transporting materials, equipment, personnel, and communications. So you can take a look at all of those under the labor costs. Last but not least, we have insurance. Premiums on hazard and liability insurance, including aggregate coverage for all activities necessary to the outdoor program. There will be available soon within the grant admin guide an insurance policy checklist that lists the insurance policy requirements for grantees. It's also important to mention that background checks on employees, volunteers, chaperones, and other participating adults are eligible costs. So if we can turn to the next page, page 40. Perfect. So it is important to keep all records of all costs for audit purposes. For any labor charged to the grant, maintain timesheets recording specific time spent on the outdoor program, and also keep invoices, receipts, and payment records for all purchases, leases, and rentals. Okay, so now that we've finished discussing eligible costs, we will now discuss ineligible costs. And these are located on the next page, which is page 41. So there's the list at the top of our ineligible costs. And so those are any costs outside of that grant performance period. So any costs incurred before or after the grant performance period are ineligible. Any capital projects, any construction, development of land, and also, which I had said earlier, vehicles, those are ineligible costs. Any indirect costs, overhead business expenses of the grantee's fixed or ordinary operating costs are not eligible. Any routine perk maintenance by the grantee's existing staff is an ineligible activity. Any fundraising and any food that is not related to a natural area trip. Food for activities within the community is not eligible. Any grant writing and any programs imposed on an applicant through legal mitigation. So those are the list of our ineligible costs. So moving down the page is a reminder about the lack of record keeping. Again, it is super important to note that during an audit, lack of record keeping can make claimed costs ineligible. And so the examples include charging employee services without documentation of actual time spent on the outdoor program, lack of source documents. And then, we want, again, to say, please see the grant administrative guide's accounting requirements for additional guidance. So again, please, at the bottom there, as a reminder, keep all records for all costs for audit purposes. For labor, again, maintain those timesheets, keep all invoices and receipts. And then again, please look over that grant admin guide for accounting requirements. All right, so I know that it was a lot, but we're going to continue on here. So now that you've had the chance to look over the eligible and ineligible costs for the program, we will now turn back to the grant scope cost estimate form. And that is on back on page 28. So here are the instructions and information on how to establish your grant scope and cost estimate summary. The instructions on this page will help applicants fill out their grant scope cost estimate form on the following page, which we'll get to in a minute. So under number 1, we want you to establish the grant scope. And so the form will be used to establish the expected deliverables for the activities described in that grant selection criteria 3 and 4 that I spoke about earlier in the webinar. We want you to use the form to list only the activities that will be funded by the grant plus committed funds if applicable during the grant performance period. Please do not include future costs beyond what the grant and committed funds will support during that grant performance period. Use the grant scope cost estimate form to provide the lump sum estimated cost of all activities consistent with the response to grant selection criteria 3 and 4. So after you do that, you're going to go to number 2, which is providing a cost estimate for the outdoor program. Again, we call attention to looking at those eligible costs and ineligible cost sections that I just went over. And so the first bullet point there is the total program cost must cover all the activities in the community and the natural area trips described in that grant selection criteria 3. Also, the form covers other items that will be added into the total program cost. Contingency for costs can be folded into line items. Please do not list contingencies as a separate line item. We understand the actual cost may change during the outdoor program. In most cases, a revised grant scope cost estimate form is not required when estimated costs fluctuate during the outdoor program. We please ask that you check the math and dollar amounts between all forms in the application to ensure the grant request amount and total program costs are consistent. So with that, if we can turn to the next page, which is page 29. And so what I just talked about on the previous page, this is the actual form that you will be filling out. And so you can see there at the top, we're asking for information regarding the activity in the community. And so you will put the goal title, number of participants, and then on the right-hand side is that total cost for the activity in the community. So again, this is where that criteria 3 charts really come in handy when you're filling out this section of the grant scope form. So again, we're going to have you put that information in the activity in the community. Again, in the middle there where it says nature area trip, we're going to be asking you to do the same thing with that. So with the natural area trips, we're going to be asking you to put the trip title, number of participants, and then also the total cost for those nature area trips on that right-hand side. So after you're putting all of that in, I'll call your attention to number 1, where it says total cost of all activities in the community and nature area trips. So you're going to total everything that you just put on that top box and second box for that number 1. And then for number 2, internships from grant selection number 4, if you have any, that's where you're going to put that number for number 2 in there, the cost. For number 3 is any pre-award planning costs for planning the outdoor program. And again, these can be up to 5% of the requested grant amount. So that's what we want you to put down for number 3. And then for number 4 is hazard and liability insurance premiums that will cover the outdoor program. So we want to list any of those costs separately in that number 4 box. And then finally, you're going to add up that 1 through 4, and that will bring you to your total program cost at number 5. And then underneath that will be your requested grant amount. So again, that was a lot of information. So if you have any questions, please put them in that chat feature. And I'm going to see if Vic wants to address any questions that have come in at this point. Victor?
Thanks, Christine. Great job. So we received a really helpful question from Allison about like examples of soil testing and planting and whether or not that is eligible. And it's a great question. I do think that question will come up much more in the future as well. So your questions today are very helpful. I should say that we are copying your questions and some of these answers into a frequently asked questions document. And Allison, I'm going to work with our team to really get detailed about when would planting and soil testing, for example, be eligible within a educational program compared to capital outlay. So we will look for that in mid-July, but I can tell you right now, Allison, that there will definitely be situations where soil testing and planting will be eligible within a program, educational program, and not considered capital outlay. So great question, Allison. We'll cover this in the documents, but very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Well, Sam, can you turn to page 30? This is going to be for the funding sources form. Perfect. So page 30 provides instructions on how to fill out the funding sources form. You'll see in this page there is a section for participant fees, and we understand that there are organizations that charge a fee. For instance, like a Boys and Girls Club may charge a $1 fee, which is okay. We just want to make sure that that fee does not deter access. And so there's going to be a place on the form to show that a fee is being charged and it is beyond what the grant is paying for. So Sam, if you go to page 33 and we'll take a look at the funding source, or page 31, and we'll see where the funding sources form is. So yeah, it is important to note that if your total program cost is more than your grant request, this form is where you'll list your funding sources. Limit the outdoor program to what can be accomplished with the grant and committed funds. Except for participant fees, additional funds must be secured no later than 3 months after the application deadline, if not yet committed at the time of application. If the grant is awarded, there will be no need for additional fundraising. The costs must be incurred before the final grant payment is processed. If funding sources change from the time of the application until the final grant payment, the applicant understands that this form must be updated within 30 days. Sam, if you could please turn to page 32 for applicant capacity. So here applicants are asked to answer 4 questions regarding their capacity to achieve the outdoor program during the grant performance period and implement a plan for the sustainable success. The applicant should respond to the following 4 areas to establish capacity. 1, previous experience with outdoor programs. 2, previous grant funding received. 3, previous or ongoing relationships with the residents or stakeholders near the community home base. And 4, whether or not permits are required and what the plan is to obtain them. Sam, please turn to page 33 for the photos and copyright license agreement. Perfect. This page provides information on completing the photos and copyright license agreement. It is optional for applicants to provide digital photos and video. Please turn to page 34 for the actual photos and copyright license agreement form. So it is important to note that this form does not need to be signed by the authorized representative, but it does need to be signed. And one form does cover all photos and videos submitted. Please turn to page 35 for the reporting certification. Christine mentioned this as well about keeping clear records. So applicants should keep clear records for reporting requirements of AB 209. To meet those requirements, grantees submit annually the 5 listed reporting requirements shown here to the Office of Grants and Local Services through an online reporting system and before the final grant payment is approved. The online reporting system will be as user-friendly and efficient as possible. Our hope is that the data collected from the grantees will inspire and inform future programs by sharing lessons learned statewide. Sam, please turn to page 36 for the nonprofit requirements. So this page asks nonprofit applicants to provide information regarding IRS status and for their most recent filed federal 990 forms. Office of Grants and Local Services may also need further documentation, and those items are listed so applicants can be prepared to provide them if necessary. If you guys got any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat feature. Victor, is there any questions that you'd like to bring to the group's attention before we turn it over to Rich?
Okay, thanks, Kyle. So there's a very good question from Sherry, and the question is, I'll read it to everyone. I understand the focus is to reach underserved populations. Are participants in a program limited to only those meeting the criteria as underserved low income? Do they need to be screened in an application process? And that's a good question. So you're correct. The emphasis of the program is to serve underserved communities, and that's why placing the community home base in a underserved community is the critical step. And then reaching out and serving, age groups within that area. However, if there will be other participants that will, come from outside the community or maybe even higher income that live within that area, that's also fine. You don't have to screen every participant for their income. So that's a great question. So again, the real key is to place your community home base in an underserved community and engage those community members, but you don't have to block others from participating as well. So great question.
Okay, thank you, Victor, and thank you, Kyle. See, can we go ahead and turn to page 42, Sam? Christine expertly discussed very well pages 37 through 41, which were the eligible costs as well as the ineligible costs. So we're going to skip over those. And so here on page 42 is the technical assistance for applicants. This is a one page in this guide that we have not gone over. So here, the key takeaway is that your project officer assigned to your county will be here to help you every step of the way through all these various types of technical assistance available. So applicants will have access to technical assistance provided by the competitive review project officers until the application due date, and that begins with the application workshops, which we are conducting right now. So we're in the initial stages of it. As a reminder, we will make an announcement when submittable. The online application system is open and applicants are able to upload their application. Project officers can provide feedback on checklist items, except for project selection criteria, which is checklist item number 2. And keep in mind, as Victor mentioned earlier, that the incomplete items after the application deadline, project officers will work with applicants to determine timelines for those, and those can be, there may be some back and forth with those types of documents. However, application checklist item number 2, the meat and potatoes of the program, which is the project selection criteria, those responses are frozen in time on the date of application. So after October 8th, 2021, those cannot be changed. So also remember that we are here to help along through every step of the way of this process. And you'll notice at the bottom of the page, there is information regarding the outdoor recreation leadership training that Christine had talked about earlier. The department's Office of Community Involvement offers interactive, hands-on training that equips adults with the skills and confidence to lead outdoor recreation activities with an emphasis on camping. This training is optional for grantees. You can visit their website at parks.ca.gov/OCI for more information. And at this point, I would like to hand it over to Cedric, who will speak more about the outdoor recreation leadership training. Cedric?
Thank you, Rich. The Outdoor Recreation Leadership Training is a program that we've been offering for over a decade and a half. It's really geared towards public agencies and nonprofit organizations that engage with youth and families in outdoor recreational opportunities. In particular, the program is designed to train individuals on how to have multiple day activities or multiple day events while camping. It includes things such as how to keep a sanitary kitchen and how to organize activities and how to be inclusive in your camp, how to set up tents and the basics of camping. But also going beyond that, we spend an enormous amount of time doing things like team building and also communication skill development. And what we found over time when we've surveyed our applicants up to a year afterwards is that the vast majority of them utilize the skills that they learn in this on a daily basis. In fact, when you first come to this particular class, applicants showed about 32% of people actually felt confident in taking people on an overnight experience. After class, and it seemed to hold true for more than a year, 81.5% actually showed that they were feeling confident enough to take groups on multiple day activities. And that was bared out as people utilize the programs that we have available to them, as well as programs that they had for day events and activities. The key here is that this is also about confidence development. We recognize that organizations are going to be coming to us with varying levels of skill as it relates to outdoor recreation. 98% of the folks who have come through our program feel that it gives them the confidence to try other things. And the important thing to note here when we talk about building capacity in community and building within organizations, this is not just taking kids and families on trips. If you think about this more broadly and looking at it as an opportunity to empower organizations and empower the people they serve to have access to the natural world on a regular basis, wherever that might be, whether it be away from them or close to home, that there's a outdoor ethos that's developed and an appreciation for making those connections. Now, graduates of this particular program have the opportunity to participate in our FamCamp program, which has been around since about 1996, I believe. And that particular program, we have a series of trailers in California state parks that have enough equipment to take up to 30 people camping. And it's basic equipment like sleeping bags and tents. It has propane. It has lanterns and stoves. We don't keep utensils or pots and pans in these trailers, but the trailers are available to our graduates for their organization. We allow, it includes when they utilize it, access to the campsite also, as well as all of the equipment. And you're also trained on how to present and put the equipment back into the trailer so that the next groups will be able to utilize it. It's been a highly successful program for a number of years, and we allow for the organizations that graduate from that program to utilize it free of charge, utilize any of those free of charge for up to 2 years of certification. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. The Outdoor Recreation Training program is ongoing. We are offering it in August of this year. There is a charge currently at $200. That $200 goes back into the equipment. It includes 3 days and 2 nights of camping, 5 meals, as well as all the training that goes along and access to the FamCamp program for a period of 2 years at no charge. So if you're interested in that, please contact our Office of Community Involvement, and we'd be glad to get you more information. If there are any questions that you might have, please go ahead and put them into the chat feature, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have related to this or anything else. Turn it back to Rich.
Cedric, there is a question, and I'm going to present the question, and I think the answer is going to be that we'll have to regroup and provide a response in the frequently asked questions document in a few weeks. But the question is, can the grant fund access for youth to participate in the in some of these programs? For example, for Outdoor Youth Connection, OYC, can the grant actually go to a nonprofit or an eligible grant recipient who then would send their youth to an OYC program? So while you think about that, or we can make it an FAQ document later.
Well, these just so we will get you more details in the FAQ. However, keep in mind, one of the advantages of this particular program is building capacity. So if you have youth that are in your program that you want to send them to our, say, for example, our Outdoor Youth Connection program, the primary purpose of that program is to help build capacity of youth to be of service within their community. And it's all outdoor related. So that's no different than if you were to be sending your youth for training so that they can further the effort of your mission. So I would encourage you to take a look at the FAQs. We'll be glad to get that information for you. The Outdoor Youth Connection program that we have at California State Parks, which will resume next summer, if not in the spring, that particular program does similar kinds of activities geared towards youth. The two things that they are required to do as graduates of the Outdoor Youth Connection, one is they're required to conduct, to plan and execute a public service project for their particular community. and they're required to also lead at least one outdoor activity for their peers and in their community. That particular program has had a great deal of success. It's had over 3,000 people go through it. There have been over 15,000 individuals who have participated in outdoor activities that have been planned and led by the youth from those respective communities. And so we'll be glad to talk to you more about that. We'll have your project officers available, as well as we will have the Office of Community Involvement staff available to you to answer any questions that you might have about either of those programs. The charge for that particular program is only $50, and that includes 5 meals, all the equipment, all the training, and it's usually a charge to the organization. We obviously subsidize that program heavily, but again, this is an opportunity about capacity building and development. So one should, think in those terms. It definitely is about how do we, the mentoring that will take place as a result of this program. Victor?
Thank you, Cedric. And I am currently going to post a email address for Dolores Mejia, who's the supervisor of both the outdoor recreation leadership and the outdoor youth connection programs, who can also provide more information about dates and enrollments and what have you.
Yeah.
So that's thank you for that, and thank you for your interest, everyone. And let's see, I got a good question from Annette Garcia about like, what if we're a nonprofit and our revenue is below $50,000 and per year, and that's totally welcome. There's no like minimum revenue to be eligible, as long as you have a 501c3 status to do business in California. You would be an eligible applicant and grant recipient. So that's fine. However, it really comes back down to your own discretion. If you feel that you're ready and capable to apply for the grants and receive the funds, another option to consider is forming a fiscal sponsor partnership. And this is really also the case for community organizations that don't have a formal 501c3 status. If you or any of your colleagues or know of any community groups that do not have a 501c3 status, there's still a way for them to be involved with this program, and that's through what we call fiscal sponsorship. And that is explained as an example of a partnership that would actually score points for criteria number 5. And if you go to the technical assistance for partnerships, that is found on, let me find it real quick, excuse me. That is found on page 48. And there are about 9 examples of partnerships that could score points on page 48. Again, there's other types of partnerships, but item 3 talks about fiscal sponsors, where you could have a eligible nonprofit or an eligible public agency be the applicant, and then other nonprofits or informal community organizations can then actually conduct services as a partner of the fiscal sponsor. So the fiscal sponsor would be the lead applicant, oversee the administration of the grant, make sure there's the insurance, all the things that have to happen. And then the community organizations could do the actual program services on behalf of the fiscal sponsor. So that's something for consideration too. And then we had a question from Craig about transportation, and a really interesting question about can training, driver training, be an eligible part of the training. And so that's a really interesting question. I definitely want to start off by saying insurance is going to be a key factor of this program. So whatever you do, you want to make sure, of course, that you're fully insured. The grant will support insurance costs. As Christine mentioned when she covered the grant scope cost estimate form, there's actually a section, there's a line where you're going to actually budget in insurance if you are requesting funding for insurance. So, and then the grant administration guide, which should be posted soon, will have more information about the insurance requirements where, that should be done pretty soon. And then you can, if you don't have insurance yet to fully cover your proposed program, you'll be able to take the page which discusses the insurance requirements to insurance companies and show them what coverage you need, and then make sure you'll have that coverage you're proposing to have that coverage should the grant be awarded. And again, that would be an eligible cost. So Craig, I could think that if you propose driving training, we'll have to talk some more about that. It's an interesting question, so I'm going to have to regroup with you on that question, Craig. And specifically, what we want to avoid is we don't want to get into employment training that gets beyond the scope of natural resources and environmental stewardship and environmental justice, because this program has a clear focus on nature, education, natural resource professions, career pathways, focusing on the outdoors and the environment. So when it comes to driving training, I don't want to say yes yet, because again, the focus is really on environmental education. So we'll have to talk some more about that, Craig. But great question, very interesting. Okay, and then we're seeing a few questions about a desire for a list of other local organizations that you may not know about, that you could form a partnership with in the same county or the same area. And that's a really, I love the spirit behind that question, but I just want to, we'll have to also, team Megan, if you can make a note that we'll have to make that a frequently asked question as well, about providing a list of interested organizations and applicants. Because this program is competitive, we do historically keep private or keep confidential interest by potential applicants, because there's, we've been doing this for 20 years, 21 years, and there's several reasons why we try to keep it a confidential process, especially because some applicants may not want outside companies and organizations contacting them trying to get their business. So we'll have to consider that question. I do appreciate the spirit behind that, but we'll have to talk if we can make a list available of organizations in your area or not. So that's something that we'll get back to you on by mid-July. Great question. Okay. I'm reading some of the other questions that came in. Natalie, do you have anything you want to share with the group?
No, not at this time. We're just still working on catching up on some of the new questions that have come in.
Okay. How about you, Richard? Anything that you see?
Nope. Okay. I think you covered most of the ones that pertain to the group.
Okay, great. Okay. Here's an interesting question from, let's see here. The question is, if each hub or community home base requires a separate application, but is a similar proposed program, is it unlikely to have similar grant awards funded, or is there an issue with overlap? It really depends on the scope of the proposed programs and truly how similar they are and how close they are to each other. I mean, I don't want to say that that will not be allowed. There may be potential to have two different proposed programs, within a half mile of each other. We'll have to wait and see if that actually happens. But there's nothing in the guidelines currently that prevents it from happening. So it is possible that there could be two community home bases very close to each other that provide similar services in a high need area, and both grants are awarded. So I don't want to close the door on that, but it's a great question. However, it will also depend on how many applications come in, how much is requested statewide, and I could imagine if the programs are very similar and serving the same population in the same community, and there's a lot of other strong proposals statewide, and maybe only one instead of both are awarded. But great question. I don't want to say no, that's not possible. It is possible that more than one grant could go to the same community for different services. So that is a possibility. Okay. And Craig, I was thinking about your idea. That's definitely an idea to see if there's a voluntary list that we could share, where organizations would willingly place themselves on a list looking for partners. That's something that we'll also discuss as a team and add that to our frequently asked questions document. So good idea and good question, Greg. In regards to will the grants administration guide be available? So our division has basically we have a competitive review team, which is the team presenting today. And then once grants are awarded, the grants go to a separate grants administration team. That grants administration team will present what we call a grants administration workshop for the successful applicants. And that team is in the final stages of getting the grants administration guide published. Our state websites are currently, we can't make updates because they're going through an internal review for accessibility. And so that's why we're saying mid-July. We hope to have clearance to post all the final documents once our department's website pages are approved for accessibility. So that's why we hope to make all the documents available by mid-July. And maybe we'll have some interesting budget news as well by then too. So look forward to that as well. Again, we have all of your email addresses, so we will send updates to you through email, as well as our program website. And Natalie just posted at 12:10 in your chat feature a link to what we call the competitive application project officers by county. So I said this earlier, I really want to emphasize this again. Today is the start of technical assistance for you, not the end. Our team takes pride in being helpful. I'll tell you, they're a very friendly, positive group, and they actually enjoy helping you. They actually enjoy providing technical assistance. So please take advantage of our team being here to help you throughout the application process. Sam is currently showing you the Outdoor Equity Program website, and towards the bottom of the web page, he's circling a section called Technical Assistance Contacts. And there's a link. Please use that link. He'll show it to you right now. Okay. And you'll see in the left-hand side, there's a list of counties in alphabetical order. And there's a green column right next to the county list that has the title Competitive Project Officer. Those are your contacts, okay? Based on the county where your community home base will be located. So please send an email when you have questions. Our team is currently reviewing, we're in the middle of another Prop 68 program where we have about 500 project applications for $2.4 billion, and they're busy in that process. So they're going to be traveling statewide this summer, but they'll also be checking the emails periodically, and they'll get back to you as well. So please take advantage of sending emails to the team, and you can also schedule a meeting with them as well. Okay. Oh, so the question, I just got that question, is it better to email than by phone? I would say yes, because they're going to be they're going to be on the road quite a bit this summer. I do recommend you send an email to the team, and you can if your question's pretty basic, just send your question in the email. If you need a longer discussion, then I would recommend you propose some times when you'll be available, and the project officer can then schedule a time to have a call with you. Okay, so thanks for that question. Okay, let's see here. Okay, and we have another question from Leanne, and the question is, so different age groups served at the same community home base would be considered one application, and that's correct. But 2 or more community home bases are considered multiple grant applications. So that's correct. Let me use an example. Let's say you're a countywide agency or nonprofit, and you're going to propose a community home base in one town of the county, and then you're going to propose another community home base in another town, or it could be 2 different areas of a city, for example. That would be 2 applications, and it is theoretically possible that you could receive 2 grant awards. Now, if you are, let me explain it this way. To serve different age groups, and we had this question yesterday, to serve different age groups through one grant, you can use 2 approaches. One approach is you could have certain activities and certain trips to natural areas for one age group. Let's just say small children, for example, and then other activities or other trips for families, and then other activities and other trips for seniors. So you can do that within one proposal to serve one community. Okay. You can also have activities and trips that serve all age groups in the community as well. So you can do a mix and match through one application. But the key here is that each application will focus on a specific community, and we'll use the data from that community using your community fact finder for criteria number 1. And then also keep in mind the reason behind that. There's some good examples for why there will be 1 application per community home base, explained on the bottom of page 4 of the application guide. Okay, thank you. Oh, here's another great question. This is a good group. So another good question from Aubrey is there a limit on the distance we can travel from the community home base to a trip? And I have a fun answer. There is a limit, and the limit is within the boundaries of the state of California. So if the grants can actually I'll give you probably the greatest distance. The grants can actually transport community members from the Mexican border, like in Calexico, all the way up to the Oregon border. You know, like you know, Crescent City, for example, or vice versa. Folks from the Oregon border, like Crescent City, could maybe visit Death Valley, for example. So those are, and experience what it's like to be in a desert. So those are examples of eligible trips. But yeah, it's the entire state of California. Travel within the entire state of California is eligible. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, we have beautiful natural diversity from desert areas to mountains, the ocean, everything you can think of. You know, redwood forest, for example. And yesterday we had that similar question, and it was really a touching discussion where, you know, we mentioned that there are youth that unfortunately never get to, you know, they graduate high school without leaving their community, without leaving their neighborhood areas. And, you know, I've personally coached youth like that through basketball, and, you know, it's a reality in California. And someone mentioned that they took a group of residents for their first time to the beach, even though the beach was only about 10 miles away. You know, adults and children had never seen the ocean before. And they were kind of really taken. They were really, I mean, I think the person almost cried when she was reflecting on that experience. So yes, the entire state of California travel is eligible. Just keep it within the beautiful state of California. Okay, so again, final thoughts from me, and then Cedric will provide some final last thoughts here, is that I want to just really emphasize that our team will be available to assist you throughout the application process. Please use the link to the competitive review project officers on the program website when you have questions, and they'll look forward towards helping you. Your success makes the program work. And we really emphasize that we're here to help you as a partner, and we do understand that without your success, the program will not work well. So we really depend on your good work in communities and make this all reality. So thank you so much for your interest today, and we look forward to your applications. Okay, Cedric.
Okay. Thank you, Victor, for that. And first of all, let me thank all of you for participating in these activities with us today. We hope that you feel more confident about the application process and know that we're going to be here throughout the process for you as a resource. We want you to put your best foot forward, and whatever we can do to make that happen, we certainly are going to be available for that with you. I just wanted to end with a couple of thoughts, one of which is that there are many things that we know because of the fine work that you and others have been doing in communities around this state. One of the things that we know is that multiple touches and multiple connections, multiple opportunities to engage nature result in lifelong experiences. I've asked people from time to time to just reflect back on when they had their first experience with nature, and they reflect back on moments that may take them back to their childhood, or it might even be just a day away, but the experience is always personal to them. It is always something that is very visceral for them. And it's just goes down to the point that nature has its own magic once we connect to it. I really want to encourage you to think about this program as an extreme opportunity for California to lead the nation in the way that we engage people in the natural world, and how we begin to look at nature as not just a personal healing source, but also an opportunity and a tool for resolving many of the challenges we have socially and many of the challenges that we have personally. Nature has a way of healing those who come into contact with it. So however we can, whatever we can do to get people to make that connection and for it to be personal for them is vitally important. I also want you to remember and think about, as you're developing your programs, if you notice We talk a lot about the idea of what happens after the programs are over. Inevitably, money runs out, and sometimes we have to leave the communities that we are serving. What we want to see as a result of this program when this money does run out is that there is a capacity within the community to embrace the natural world that is either near them or away from them. What we've found is that when people have personal connections, that the barriers that are so dominant in their lives now seem to melt away as people begin to utilize each other as a resource for making things happen. So as you're thinking about your programs, please think about them, and development of your program, please think about them in terms of how we're going to do this to engage people to be empowered to make decisions about their lives and to engage in nature and on their own terms. Finally, let me just say that we really appreciate all the work that you're doing. The thing that we know is we don't know the exact answer. There's no code that needs to be broken that can give everyone an easy solution. However, we do know this, that the solution is going to require multiple modalities. It's going to require all the experiences that all of us have had collectively coming together to create something, whether it be a multitude of services or whether it is that magical idea that comes forward. It'll only happen when we put our minds together and we put our best foot forward so that we can see the successes that we've had, help build off of that. We're building up whatever we're doing for the next generation. And the next generation will have the obligation and the ethical responsibility to take things to a higher level. So we want to do it right as best we can, do it right now, because the generation that will come after us, well, hopefully we won't have to have programs like this. It'll be a natural state of the world that people will have those connections. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you again and offer that we're going to stick around for a few minutes to answer any questions that you might have. We'll allow you to raise your hand and go live on your mic so that we can speak directly to you. We'll stick around as long as there are questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them for you. So on that note, thank you, team, for the work that you've done, and thank you, audience, for taking an interest in our program. But most importantly, thank you for taking an interest in the people we all serve collectively. Everyone have a great day and a great weekend, and please make certain that you utilize the resources that we're offering to you. We look forward to working with you in the future. Everyone, thank you again. Goodbye. Sam, we're going to be sticking around, so we want to make sure that the mics are open if they would choose.
Okay, so you all have the option of raising your hand. There's a hand symbol that's right next to your, should be by your chat feature, and you can go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. Richard and Natalie will keep an eye out for you, and then also you can unmute yourself as well. Thank you.
For those individuals who are on the telephone and would like to ask a question, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself. It does take a few seconds for it to work the system and unmute you, but you can hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, it looks like we have a hand up. Can Richard, can you call on, I think it's Christy. Is Christy the first one with the hand up? And Christy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, so I had a question you guys kind of answered, but not really. So I work for a school district in rural Central California, and I was playing with your map thing for the statistics required. And the pin covers a super small fraction of my school district. My school district is huge, though it's very sparsely populated. So by using the statistics you give, it doesn't give an accurate picture of my school district. Like many of the places that I moved the pin to said that there were 10 youths living in that area or 7 youths living in that area. And obviously my school district is much bigger than that. Can I kind of move it around and do a combination, or do I have to pick one specific place?
Yeah, good question, Christy. So you will use your fact finder and scan your entire district and look for an area within your district that may be the most competitive based on the data that is available. But however, I do want to say that there's also another key point, and that is criteria number 1B on page, I believe it's page 14. Let me check here. Yes, criteria number 1B on page 14 is intentionally designed to take into account other factors that are not covered by the fact finder. So you'll be able to, explain the need for the grant, and we can consider other issues and other factors that are not covered by the fact finder data.
Okay, so I can say that, I use this area because it's the most heavily populated in my school district, but district-wide, these are the actual statistics kind of thing?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I think, but I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Absolutely, great question. Thank you.
Okay, Juan, go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Juan.
Oh, great. Hi. This is more of a maybe it's related to activities and like I guess the depth or like the length of time that program serves students. And so I work with an organization that does 4 to 7 day expeditions to the Sierras, to the deserts, and kind of local parks. So I guess my question is, for those types of organizations that are doing kind of deep dives with, a cohort of 16 or 20 students for 7 days, how much of that can we consider, it's a 24-hour period. So how many of those hours can we consider, as part of the activity? And I only bring that up because I know that there's other nonprofits, that work with students, let's say after school, for an hour, every week, or 2 hours every week for 8 or 10 weeks. But with these like expeditions, you're getting like, let's say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. type of like service time in a period. Like, are you all considering that as part of the activity time?
Yeah, absolutely. Overnight and deep dive experiences are definitely eligible. We had a similar question yesterday about camps, and someone said, can the grants actually support transporting youth from their community to a summer camp program in a natural area? And we said that's what this program is all about. I mean, there's so many youth that don't have access to camps, that can't afford camps, and this program can absolutely give residents and youth a camping experience that could be a week long. That's definitely eligible.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I know there's a big emphasis on like sequential programming and programs that hit kind of the same cohorts over and over again. But when you're doing these like intensive, I guess 4 to 7 day expeditions, it seems like to do those more than once in a year or more than twice in a year it seems like you would only concentrate on a very small group of people for a very extended amount of time. So that helps. Thank you all for that answer.
Sure. And Juan, I also want to say that as you go back to criteria 1 through 6, you want to definitely, as you go through, to consider the point rubrics. Ask yourself if there's other things you could do to score points. So while the 4 to 7 day experience for, let's say, 20 youth, maybe once a year, is definitely eligible. I mean, 100% that type of activity is eligible. There may be a partnership you could form, or some other activities to score the points under criteria number 3, for example.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Lon. Okay, and we have a question about, is there a limit to the number of grants that will be awarded to one applicant or one organization? The bottom of page 4 in the application guide does say that it is possible that one organization or one applicant may receive more than $700,000. The only cap we have is a limit of $700,000 awarded per grant application. There's no limit on the number of or amount of grants that a particular agency or organization may receive. We do, given all the interest in this program, I can't imagine all the funds going to one applicant, but it is possible, again, that you can receive multiple grants for more than $700,000. It's very possible. Okay, thanks for that question. Okay.
Victor, to follow up on that, the question is it possible all grants can go to Northern California and none to Southern California? I think that was the question.
Okay, yeah, great. That's also a very interesting question. And Megan, if you could kind of include that in the FAQs about like regional distribution, because we got that yesterday too. The question yesterday is, will there be an effort to award grants in different regions of the state? And I'll start by saying that we are really excited about all the interest this program is receiving, and given the interest, and also given how much funding is available, and understanding that California has a lot of underserved communities throughout the state, from urban and rural and suburban areas statewide, and in all regions. We do anticipate that naturally there's going to be great proposals statewide. The legislation does not specify a certain percentage of money going to one county versus another, but we do anticipate great proposals statewide. So I think to answer your question really directly, I don't think that 100% of the funds will go to Northern California, 100% going to Southern California, just based on all the focus groups and public hearings and these workshops. We're seeing interest from all areas of the state. So thank you.
Are there any more questions? If you do, just go ahead and hit the raise hand feature and unmute your mic. I don't see any other raised hands, Vic.
Okay, Rich. Okay. Thank you, Lanny. Yeah, great questions today. Okay, we'll stay around for about 1 more minute to make sure that all questions are answered. Otherwise, we'll close at 12:38.
I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead. We hear you.
Oh, sorry. This is Leilani. I got kicked off. My internet went down twice. Can you tell me when the recording of this will be available for us to watch?
Yeah, thank you. So it should be available. We're gonna do 2 more. Oh, by the way, we'll have 2 more application workshop webinars in mid-July. You're welcome to join one of those 2. I think we have a little bit of space left. I think we should have the webinar recordings available by probably later July. At the earliest would be mid-July, but I think we're gonna do 2 more workshops first before we select the best sections. So I would say late July.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Any other questions? I don't see anything else coming through, Victor.
Okay, Supervisor Rendon, I